Hello, Monsters Abound here with my big stupid face. We've hit 10,000 subscribers, which is frankly amazing. I never thought I'd hit 10,000 subscribers. I never thought I'd hit 100, to be honest. So hitting 10,000 is pretty amazing. It does mean that when I say I've got a YouTube channel and people go, do you? And I can go, but I've got 10,000 subscribers. Suddenly they take me a little bit seriously. Oh yes. So that's exciting. So 10,000 people have actually subscribed to my channel, either on purpose or more likely by accident, but thank you all the same. So thank you everyone for subscribing. I really appreciate it, so thank you ever so much. I did say when I hit 10,000 subscribers that I would be doing a Q&A video, because that seems to be the done thing and I can't be bothered to think outside the box, so I'm thinking very much inside the box, doing what everyone else does and doing a Q&A video. So I asked for questions off the Discord and off the YouTubes, and I've compiled them into a big questionable lump, which is what we've got here. Big questionable lump in Google Sheets. Fantastic. The best way to display all your questions. So I'm going to look through the questions. Some of them might be sort of similar. So if I don't get around to your question, it's either because it was sort of like amalgamated into others, or because when I was pissing about with the Google spreadsheet, I accidentally deleted it. That's the other option. I will try and answer everything. If I don't answer, then I do apologise. I am trying to get around to everything. But I've kind of split them into sort of three types. We've got sort of like channel questions, the Total War questions, and then sort of miscellaneous. So we'll do it in that order. No particular order of questions because I fucking just lump them all in together. So without further ado, so Night Pope and Blaze106 asked a similar question, sort of why did I decide to start doing YouTube and why did I pick Total War as my mainstay? Well, the reason I started a YouTube channel was because I was working in an office and there was a chap there. He was a little bit older than I was. He had a family. He didn't game all that much, but he did do a little bit. And he occasionally would have a chat. And my personality is, this is me all the time. I don't put anything on for YouTube because fuck me, I couldn't be bothered. So me generally in the office is about the same sort of level. And after sort of some comment I made, I can't remember what it was, but he basically went, you know what, I watch these YouTube videos. I don't know if you do. And I was like, yeah, I watch YouTube. And he goes, you'd be very good on it. And flattery is, I'm very susceptible to flattery. So instantly I thought, well, obviously, yes. I mean, you're right. So I kind of, like a few weeks later, I was there thinking, should I? I mean, there's no harm in giving it a go, right? I'd watched some other people and I thought, you know what, they're good, but I don't know. I think maybe I could be as good. So I thought, worth a shot. So I decided to make a YouTube channel. As for why it was Total War, so the first Total War Warhammer I'd released, and I've always loved the Total War series. It's one of my favourite series of games, and the Warhammer variant of Total War just was the perfect game. I cannot express to you how excited I was when I first saw the announcement that it was coming. I've always loved Games Workshop. I've always loved Total War. Bringing those things together is basically having my cake and eating it at the same time. So it was a pretty easy decision actually, because at that time I think I'd been playing solely Total War Warhammer for, oh god, a good 6 months I think. I hadn't played anything else. And I just always loved Total War, and I thought, you know what, there's some really good Total War YouTubers, but it wasn't as saturated as some other games. If you go like, you know, for example, Fortnite, there's like a billion channels. Total War is a little bit more niche, and therefore there's a little bit easier to kind of break into. So I thought, you know what, let's go Total War. It's, you know, I really enjoy it. It's a game that I'll play forever, and there we go, and the rest is history. So I just knocked up a logo and started my own YouTube channel. And you actually go back and watch my first ever video, which was Scarsnick, and fuck me, if I go back and watch that video, it is painful to listen to myself. I think I've improved. Well, I don't know, maybe I've improved. Ducky has asked, how much time do you think you spend on a daily basis on your YouTube channel with creating and editing videos? So each Total War video takes about, I would say, 2 hours. and then probably another half an hour editing, and then obviously you've got the render time, which is roughly maybe a couple of hours. The upload time, that's again another couple of hours. Of course, the render and upload time, I don't actually need to be there for it, but I tend to render overnight because that's easier, because obviously if you're rendering, I don't know if you know video editing, but if you're rendering, your computer is working pretty fucking hard, so you basically can't do anything else at the same time. So I tend to render overnight and then upload. Creating thumbnails is a little bit tricky to start off with, so creating a new thumbnail template usually takes about half an hour, depending on what I'm doing, depending on how much I want to, hash it. But after that, it doesn't take very long. It's usually 5 minutes or so just to knock stuff together, so it's not too bad. So roughly on a daily basis, I would say I am recording and editing and setting up videos for about 3 hours a day, roughly, I guess. Varies depending on what I'm doing, but around about that, I would say. So Genghis864, Cara Cox and Stephen Hancock have asked sort of similar questions, which is currently watching Battletech series, and have I considered doing any Paradox games, and what other games do I want to produce content for? So I love Paradox, I love Stellaris, Battletech is great, I love City Skylines, I've dabbled with Europa Universalis and Hearts of Iron, all that kind of stuff. I also like RimWorld. I actually was considering doing a modded RimWorld campaign with orcs, which sounded quite fun. It's something that I created a thumbnail for. I got all the mods together and then I never did it, but it is something I do want to do. And basically it comes down to how much time I have available, because at the moment I don't have a huge amount of time per day to record videos. I'm not a full-time YouTuber. I work during the day, come home, record videos. I'm recording at the moment while my son is currently asleep. That's giving me a little bit of time, but I have to be careful because I need to keep an ear out just in case. We're fine. So I try and get little snippets of time to do stuff on. So doing my main video daily usually takes up most of my time. If I find any more time, then I tend to do another video. At the moment I'm doing my 20 years of Total War, so I'll try and find time to do that. There's loads of games I'd love to do stuff for. There's the occasional game that just pops up where I just go, oh, that looks interesting, and there's a few games I've got sort of lined up that I would like to do stuff for and just haven't got round to at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. But yes, I would love to do more Battletech, because I've heard the Flashpoint DLC is actually very, very good. I love Paradox in general. I love Stellaris. Stellaris is probably my second favourite game after Total War. And RimWorld and Prison Architect I really do enjoy. Other games I enjoy, things like what's that 2D one where you're stuck in the asteroid? Fuck me, I've forgotten the name of it now. Oxygen Not Included, that's the one. Really like that. I'm currently playing Star Sector when I find the time, and it's literally 15 minutes here or there. So that kind of thing. So I'd love to do lots of different videos on different things. On the other hand, I don't want to sort of deluge the channel with all the stuff, so I tend to limit it to a maximum of 2 videos a day. I feel like 2 videos a day is probably just about right, I think. So yeah, so there's lots of games that I would love to do stuff for. I tend to like strategy games of all kinds, turn-based and real-time, and also I quite like buildy games as well. It's just my bag. There you go. So yeah, so would like to do more videos. Currently don't have the time, unfortunately. So General Keenan, Kevin Schwart and Telsian Blackadder, as well as Lemon Yesterday, have all asked similar questions, which is sort of how's life? How do you balance work for YouTube with other requirements, i.e. Mrs. MonstersAbound and Squidge, that's my little boy. How's MA Junior doing? And what is the hardest thing about being what's the hardest thing about being Squidge's father? Well, so fortunately I have a very long-suffering wife who is kind of okay with me doing this because it brings in some money. It doesn't bring in a lot of money, but it brings in some money, so she's kind of like, all right, if you want to do it, fine, knock yourself out. And I tend to find times where she's sort of like doing other things, or either she goes out for like she'll take Switch to like swimming or something, and then I can do some recording, or something like that. So I tend to try and spend as much time as I can with them, because I think that's obviously very important. But any time where I can, where it's like I'm not really needed, then I tend to do sort of recording. So that tends to be how I balance it. I try and set up my videos on a daily basis in the morning. If I can't, I actually have my desktop turned on, and I'll remote in on my phone to then, and that's a pain. I'll tell you what, if you've ever tried editing a thumbnail on a screen, that's good luck, because it's a pain in the ass, but it can be done. So that tends to be how I sort of like try and manage. But basically, it's a lot of panicking at the last second, and trying not to stay up until 11 o'clock sort of editing and stuff, just trying to get stuff ready to go, and then finding time to put it out. But otherwise, things is going great. If he would sleep a little bit more, because at the moment Squidge is teething. So I was awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't been to bed since. So I've been up for 10 hours, and it's only 2 in the afternoon. Quite tired. The Last Crows asked, how long do you want to continue doing YouTube? Well, as I said, it don't make a huge amount of money from it, but I do make money, which is nice, don't get me wrong. So it's one of those things where if it ever became really annoying, I think I'd probably not bother. However, I still really just enjoy doing it. It's basically a hobby, I think. And I realised, I have to be very careful when I say that, because obviously there's people who make a living from it. And it's important to remember that, you know what, it's actually very, very hard to make. I mean, I would say I'm fairly successful for YouTube, certainly. I think something like 90% of channels don't have over 100 subscribers, so to have 10,000 is comparatively pretty fucking good. And I am nowhere near making a living from this at all, whatsoever. Nowhere close. I'm making some nice, like, change. Like, it's nice to have a little bit of extra cash. Really good. But, yeah, it's really, really tough to make a living from it. So if it ever became, like, a real grind and a chore, I think I'd just go, you know what? It's not really worth it. However, for the moment, I can't see that ever being a problem. I thoroughly enjoy it. I really like making videos. You learn a lot of new skills, things like learning Photoshop, video editing, things that have actually kind of like really helped day to day, just at work. I've had a few things at work where people have gone, I've got this video and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, like, you know, take this bit of it. And I'm like, that'll take me about 30 seconds. And they think you're some sort of wizard for doing that, which is pretty impressive. So I've got no particular sort of long-term plans, really. It's just as long as it's enjoyable. Ducky asks, also, when you started this YouTube, Twitch, did you hope for growth, or was you just doing it for giggles? Mostly just giggles, really. To be honest, I'd kind of read up a lot beforehand, and it's very, very hard to get started on YouTube. It is an absolute grind. I think for a lot of people, it never works. You can put out all the content you want. It can be really, really good. If no one sees it, it doesn't matter. And I think you have to be quite lucky, and also pick your battles, I think. One of the reasons I did Total War was because it wasn't that sort of... It's a bit niche, really. So there's not that many Total War YouTubers, comparatively. So I started doing it for Total War, partly because I really enjoyed it, partly because it was not too saturated compared to the gaming channels as a whole. But I kind of figured, like, you know what, if I get 10 views, that'll be pretty good. So yeah, pretty much for the giggles. I had no real sort of idea. I didn't think I was gonna be like an internet sensation overnight or ever. But either way, it was just sort of just for fun, really. Still is. Jawazi asks, when are live streams coming back? So in the end of September, I was made redundant, so I was streaming quite a bit because obviously I didn't have any job to go to, which was nice. However, it turns out that actually working for a living makes you more money than streaming, which was to be expected, really. So I have now found work, which is great. It's really good. Only been in it since just before Christmas, so of course I had to sort of stop my live streams. With that said, I do want to continue my live streams. However, YouTube is very much my sort of main thing. So streams, I do like doing them because I think they're kind of a different medium, and I think different games work better on Twitch than they do on YouTube. Stuff like Stellaris I think works better on Twitch. Comparatively, I think Total War works better on YouTube personally, but obviously there's Total War streamers who would completely disagree with that. But that's just for me. As such, I would quite like to try and stream at least once a week. However, I kind of need to sort of get work down. I've only been working for one full week at the moment. Obviously, we've had Christmas. Currently, Squidge is growing teeth, and that's obviously quite painful for him, so he's up a lot, so we're not getting a lot of sleep, so I'm trying to go to bed as early as possible. That way I try and get enough sleep, so when I get elbowed in the head by my wife at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she's like, he's been up all night, you take him now. And, you know, I can then function on a day-to-day basis. So I would like to stream about once a week, which would mean maybe, because obviously if I can do one video a day, if I could stream a night, then I could upload the stream as one of the videos for that day. That's the plan. When I will execute that plan, I'm not sure yet, but that is the plan at the moment. Crafty Scott asks, how many times do you rehearse your intros? Do you write it or just say what comes to mind? So I'm usually pretty right. So if I have a specific idea for an intro, I tend to write it down, because if I write it down, I can then sort of iterate on it. I'll write it down, then read it through a couple of times, and then go, what if I change this? What if I add this bit? And eventually, when I think it's relatively funny, I'll kind of go with it. As for how many times, it kind of depends. It depends how sort of like long the intro is. The longer it is, the trickier it is. Like some of the lore videos take quite a while, which I do love doing the lore videos, but they do take a lot of writing, editing, and obviously recording takes quite a while, because it's quite easy to kind of get to a point in what you're reading and then go, wait, fuck, that doesn't make fucking sense, and then have to change it. But for most intros, I can either do it in one or maybe a couple of takes, and it's generally fine, or I can stitch stuff together and it's, you know, all right. So I've got so many ideas I've got written down, but time-wise, ever since I've been made redundant, I've had no time. Actually, probably since Squidge was born, I've probably had no time. But it's one of those things where I've got lots of the stuff written down where I go, what about this? What about this? What about this? And at some point, I'm actually going to go in and finish off that idea. So yeah, it doesn't take too long, but it does take some time to actually just sit down and have, like, you know, half an hour to actually think about it, which at the moment is time I don't have. Ahmad Ali says, could you show us some hater mean comments for a bit of bants? You know what? I don't really. I know this sounds awful, but well, no, it sounds great. But I don't get many like mean comments, to be honest. The only one I can think of was someone who was getting really shitty for the fact that I record the replays rather than fight the battles. I mean, it's a preference thing. I get it. You know, some people would prefer me to fight the battles. Fair enough. I mean, there's plenty of YouTubers that do that. So, I was like, that's fine. Don't have to watch it. It's all right. I don't really think I've got many. I don't tend to get many hater comments. Maybe it's because I'm just really sarcastic to the people that do put the hater comments on, so they just don't bother coming back. Drop a sauce. Is there anyone who you can thank for your success? Who was the one making it possible for you to achieve eternal stardom? Holy shit. God. I don't think there is anyone particularly. I guess. I think I got a fairly early break when someone mentioned me on Reddit, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was, but someone posted a Reddit post that basically went, hey, there's this guy, he makes videos, he's quite funny, go watch him. And I got this massive fucking spike, which really helped, because YouTube's one of those things where if your videos aren't being viewed, YouTube doesn't advertise them to anyone. If YouTube doesn't advertise them into anyone, no one fucking watches them. So it's one of those things where it's really hard to get started in YouTube. So stuff like that really actually does help. You suddenly get like, 200 people looking at a video, whereas before you only got like 30. And suddenly YouTube's like, interesting. And it starts pumping your video higher up the search rankings, which makes a difference. So whoever that person was, I probably should have actually gone and searched for them. I don't know if I've been able to find them, but that person, certainly. I think Dogbert as well from Creative Assembly, because back with the Queen and the Crone DLC, I want to say, the one with Alariel, I had less than 1,000 subscribers at that point. I think I was only about 5 to 700. And I followed Dogbert on Twitter, and he put a post out just before the release saying, hey, is there any content creators that would like early access? And I was like, I don't think he's going to give me early access, but it's worth a shot. So I sent him a message and basically said, look, here's my channel. I'm a little YouTuber. Totally understand if you just want to ignore me. It's fair enough. But I would like to be considered if possible, if not now, in the future. And about 5 minutes later, I got a message saying, what's your email? And I was like, holy fuck. And I got early access to the Queen and the Crone, which I'd never got a key before. I'd never got a key to a game before in my life. And the fact that someone was giving me a free game before the release was like amazing. And just, I think that little bump really did help. I think if I was going to thank anyone, it would probably be Dogbert and the person on posted the thing on Reddit. Thank you very much. Jurassic says, where are you from? I am from the United Kingdom, and I live specifically in Cornwall, which is the very southwest tip. So if you look at a big map of Cornwall, you look right down the bottom bit that way, because it's reversed. You look down that little spiky bit. It's a very, very rural county. It's one of those places that no one really goes unless they want to go there. It's a very, very poor region of the United Kingdom. It's sort of lumped in. I think it's one of the poorest regions in Northern Europe, comparatively. I think it's one of the 10 poorest regions. I think the United Kingdom's got a lot of the poorest regions in Northern Europe. However, it is. I think Cornwall's one of the top ones, along with the Welsh valleys. So there's not a lot of business here, to be honest. It's very, very rural. It's very out of the way. It's tricky to get anywhere, but it's nice. It's picturesque. It's a peninsula, so you're always close to the sea. We've got some stunning views. So as long as you don't like money, then you're all good, really. And we get super fast broadband, so actually doing YouTube pretty good. Ian's Mental Omega and Sandwich911 said, how does one come up with such comedic genius like yours? Is it natural talent or did you learn it? And how did you consistently edit and push out 30-minute videos on daily while remaining funny and fresh with each new campaign? Excellent question, although I think you might be talking about a different YouTuber because my campaigns are neither funny nor fresh. Comedic genius is maybe a little bit strong, but I think my granddad had a very dry sense of humour. And he listened to The Goons, and which was an old British radio show. I think it was playing over during the war. I think it's that old, but I think that then sort of led on to sort of like comedy-wise onto the Pythons. I think they pulled a lot of stuff from that. And then that sort of went into things like Blackadder, The Young Ones, which then goes into things like IT Crowd and Father Ted. And I've just kind of like been constantly had that influence of sort of British comedy sort of drummed into me. Plus, at school, I was not a particularly sporty person. In fact, I was quite rotund, and as such, I was a target for bullies. And because of that, I found a good defense mechanism was just being funny, because if you're funny, people don't want to take the piss out of you, especially if you do it to yourself first. You scorch the earth, they've got nothing left. So it's kind of I just say weird shit a lot of the time, and I guess I don't realise I'm saying weird shit a lot of the time, but people's reactions are often enough to make me realise that it's probably not stuff a normal person would say. But that's just me, I guess. Okay, so now we're moving on to the Total War questions. So Lord Herr Bunnington said, if you could get CA to listen to whatever you say and rework one faction, preferably in Total War Warhammer, which faction would it be and how would you have them rework it? Love the content, by the way. Keep it up. Thank you very much. So, my first instinct is to say the Greenskins. However, I think the Horde factions, so the Beastmen, Warriors of Chaos, and to a lesser degree Nakai, all have similar problems, which is that because they're Horde factions, they grow slower than normal factions, they're at more risk, and they have less opportunities to be interesting. I think the Beastmen in particular, the Beastmen are one of my favourite factions, so I think that it's one of those things where I think the Beastman campaign is very thematic because you spend a lot of your time sort of hiding in forests, attacking undefended settlements and all that kind of good stuff. But particularly recently in the latest patches, the AI techs up incredibly fucking quickly and you will find a lot of shit walled very, very quickly. And as such, it actually makes playing the Beastman campaign pretty fucking risky and very dangerous. You have to play in a particular way to kind of like keep up, because otherwise you get kind of like left behind and it's very risky. If you get spotted, for example, you can instantly get wiped out and it's very dangerous. Having said that, the Wood Elves as well are another faction who I think need a change, but their change is a lot easier. For the Wood Elves, I would just change the Amber from being a sort of upkeep mechanic to just being accumulative. And I think that, so say for example upgrading the Oak of Ages took 1,000 amber, and say that each settlement you had gave you 5 amber a turn, which means that even if you've only got one settlement, eventually you can upgrade the Oak of Ages and that will make life easier. Whereas at the moment you have to take a certain number of settlements and it's a pain in the arse to take them. It's not really worth the effort. And that makes their campaign really, really tricky. So probably, just because it's easier, I'd say Wood Elves would just change the Amber mechanic because it seems like a really easy fix. Tajir McCall and Existential Tempest have asked, what is my favourite Total War unit and faction? So, Total War unit, I'm going to say Minotaurs, because I fucking love Minotaurs. You charge Minotaurs at anything and it evaporates. That's just how that works. They're really, really good. As for faction, I want to say Beastmen, just because I know the Beastmen are sort of one of the factions in Warhammer that kind of got left behind a little bit. It's a bit sad because they're kind of just the generic baddies. You know, if you want someone to charge out of a forest at some undefended settlement and get the fuck wiped out of them, it's going to be the Beastmen. Of course it is. It's going to be the Beastmen. And as such, I kind of have I feel I have an affinity for them. They're poor sad bastards. They didn't choose this life. They're angry at the world. They just want to burn some stuff and cut some arms off. Who can argue with that? However, I think my favourite faction is probably Goblins, just because they're kind of like Beastmen, but they've got fanatics, which are fucking hilarious. Because if you've watched my Wurzag campaign, which is it's an interesting campaign, but there's a few battles in there where I use fanatics to a fantastic degree and manage to basically wipe out an enemy army just by throwing fanatics at it, and you just watch the carnage that it causes. It's so much fun. So I would probably say Goblins, Greenskins, but specifically Goblins. Stoneforge asks, will you ever do a full War Conquest series of Mortal Empires? I don't tend to do full War Conquest, mostly because I just don't have the patience. I tend to get bored. That's the problem. I tend to just lose the will to live. I never finished a campaign in Total War before I started doing YouTube, because I have to finish it now, just because of my own sort of like I need to finish the campaign. That's how this works. But beforehand, I would always get to a point where I was fighting an enemy faction and they had some cool units, and I'd be like, I should play them, and then I'd start a new campaign. So I feel like getting to the short campaign victory is basically kind of what I like to do. However, with that said, I would like to do some custom victory conditions, and I keep thinking I should do that. But it's one of those things of like keeping to it. I tried to do one with Skarsnik and get to Ulth 1. Didn't do that. We had the world's largest pincer attack, which worked. I mean, no one can say it didn't work. However, it did take a fucking long time. So I think that's one of my longest campaigns. And the problem with campaigns is that the longer they go on, the more people kind of drop off and don't bother watching it. So it's one of those things where I kind of get to a point in a short campaign where I kind of go, you know what? That's fine. I'm okay with that. But equally, maybe I should do some custom victory conditions before fulfilling the short campaign victory. Lucky Micro says, would you like to see the Ogre Kingdoms as a faction in Total War Warhammer? And would you play them? Yes. And yes, because they're big, beefy boys and they like their food. And I can get behind that. Red Martin asks, who would win in a brawl between all the major Total War YouTubers? Not me. I'd get my head kicked in pretty quickly. I'm like a T-Rex. I'm large, I'm imposing, I've got tiny little claw hands and no upper body strength. I just get fucked. I feel like, you know what? Assuming we're going with streamers as well, I'm going to say Nerd Rage Fitness just because he works out a lot and I feel like he can probably run rings around most of the other Total War YouTubers / streamers. So I'm going to say Nerd Rage Fitness because I feel like he would be in peak physical condition. Basically the opposite of me. Ashish Bahara says, would you ever consider doing a Steel Faith Overhaul Grimhammer campaign? Yes, I have been meaning to look into potentially doing a Beastman campaign with Steel Faith Overhaul. The main problem I have is that there are a few campaigns with Steel Faith Overhaul where it makes it ridiculously hard. I'm thinking mostly like the Mazdamundi campaign. It makes the campaign a lot slower. It also racks up the defences in each settlement, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of means that if you don't have a couple of armies and they've got an army parked in a city, it's very difficult to take the city because obviously they've got a defensive position and massive fucking numbers. So that's the problem I have with the Mazdamundi one. So I think it kind of depends on the campaign. But I'd be interested to see if they're doing anything interesting with Beastmen, because I don't think the current vanilla Beastmen campaign works very well. So that could be an option. So it's something I have considered. I haven't got round to actually checking to see whether it's actually kind of like works as of yet. But yeah, it is something I have been thinking about. Daniel Matos has asked, do you wish death upon all wood elves? Yes. Gunny822 has said, if you had to choose one of the Total Wars to play for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Mine would be Medieval 2. Medieval 2 is a good shout because if you're including DLC with that, obviously you get all of the extra little campaigns they had. So not a bad option, actually. I don't know if I could play Medieval 2, though, because it doesn't have... I really like the replenishment mechanic, and Medieval 2 doesn't have it. So there's a lot of busy work. But having said that, it is a good shout. It's a very varied game. I'd probably say Total War Warhammer 2 because it's just got that variety in it. As long as you could also have Mortal Empires and play all the factions, because technically that's one game, isn't it? I'm going to say it's one game. I get to choose, so yes, it is one game. So I would probably say Total War Warhammer 2. With that said, Three Kingdoms is really, really fun. But I think Total War Warhammer 2 just sort of edges it out a little bit. Helperino Criperino says, how many campaigns will it take for you to use the Save Camera Settings mod? Too many to count. I keep meaning to install that, and the thing is, it's not a problem after the first episode of any fucking campaign I play. So inevitably, I would always forget to turn it on as well. With that said, I'm loving the replay battle commentary you do, so we can see the cinematic aspects of the battle. Thank you very much. Have you considered perhaps also doing Age of Empires 2 campaign? Generally not too long. I think it's an RTS you'd enjoy. I do love Age of Empires 2, actually. I think it's one of the first strategy games I ever got for the PC. I think it might be. I haven't played it in ages. There's the remastered version on Steam, isn't there? I did see it. And I was mulling over whether I should get it. It's very much kind of a case of, do I have time to play it? And the answer to that is no. But it's something I would like to do. Master Mercher asks, if you could replay one of your campaigns that you've made for YouTube, which would it be? I mean, it'd probably be one of the earlier ones, but to be honest, I've kind of replayed some of the factions already, and I think that the reason I replay the factions is because as things change, the campaigns change. So if I played Skarsnik now, like replay the Skarsnik campaign, you'd have you've got different things to deal with. You've got new factions on the map. When I first played Skarsnik, there wasn't the Tomb Kings hadn't been released yet, so we didn't have to deal with those factions. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff now that wasn't really a problem. Plus, of course, the Empire would kick the fucking shit out of me because they're currently just stupidly strong. So I probably wouldn't want to replay that one. I can't think of a particular campaign that went maybe the Mazda Mundi one, just because I kind of had to finish it early. The Throg one we had to finish as well early. So maybe like one of the campaigns that I've had to end early because like new DLC or a patch has been released and it's broken the campaign. Something, yeah, one of them. Eldritch says, how do you feel knowing that you are the best Total War player in the world? Nice brown nosing, like it. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Makinshi says, of the 4 factions typically suggested for Warhammer 3, Kislev, Demons, Chaos Dwarves and Ogre Kingdoms, which would you most like to play and why? Chaos Dwarves. I think it's just because of the hats. I don't know why, but the Chaos Dwarves have always called to me as being just weirdly cool, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I got blunderbusses. I just like big guns, and I cannot lie. But yeah, I mean, Ogre Kingdoms comes pretty close. I would say it goes Chaos Dwarves, Ogre Kingdoms, Demons, Kislev. That would probably be my sort of order of preference. But yeah, Chaos Dwarves, and I can't really tell you why. I just really like Chaos Dwarves for some reason. Rahana Sheriff and that one, asking why I don't play multiplayer with other YouTubers and have I ever considered doing a co-op Total War campaign. So the reason I don't tend to, I've done a few multiplayer ones, but I'm fucking terrible. But the reason I don't tend to do it is because I've got such a short amount of time to record in, and it's so ad hoc that it's very difficult to sort of get someone on the same schedule, because obviously don't do YouTube full time. I work during the day, so the evening's about the only time. I've got a small boy. That limits the amount of time I've got. So basically, there's a very short amount of time that I can do any recording in, and it tends to be very sort of up in the air of when that's going to be and how long that's going to be. As such, doing a co-op campaign is going to be very, very tricky. It's something I would love to do at some point. However, at the moment, it's just very much getting the schedules together. We did a little multiplayer. I think it was a 4-way campaign. Technically a 3-way, but it was a 4-way, not campaign, battle for the last Ever Chosen multiplayer tournament, and I think it was Nerd Rage, Fitness, Arcard and me, and also Josh from CA, who was playing. Was it Arcard? I can't remember. I can't remember who was playing, but Josh was one of them from CA anyway, and I was the other one. I was playing Skarsnik, and it took us, I want to say, about 4 days to organise that, just to get everyone in the same place. And we wanted to do some more afterwards, but just could not find the time. No one was available at the same time, so it turned into just having that one, unfortunately. But it's just very tricky to get the schedules sort of like sort of linked up. Sean Hoff says, so what was the show that you got the Ulysses theme tune from, and what's your relation to it? Favourite show? Just a show you watched, never actually seen, stuff like that. When I was watching the Kraken Law campaign, you clearly had a lot of reverence for the name, in the way you had a literal montage for the name. So I was wondering what was up with that. So it's the theme tune is a theme tune to an old cartoon called, I think it was called Ulysses 31. It's basically the story of the Odyssey, except set in space. So Ulysses is obviously Odysseus, or Ulysses is the Latin name of Odysseus, isn't it? That's how that works. So Ulysses is obviously he's in a spaceship, he's going to different worlds. I think his son's about to be sacrificed to some sort of weird techno thing, and then he shoots a techno thing and it's got an eye, and that turns out that the gods are there and Poseidon's a bit fucked off with him. Poseidon's got like a race of people who have trident-shaped ships, because why the fuck not? It's basically completely fucking bonkers. However, that theme tune is fucking awesome, and they don't make theme tunes like that anymore. And as such, as soon as I saw Ulysses, the theme tune just popped into my head, and I was like, fuck it, let's do it, because even if no one understands where it's from, the sheer sort of like absurdity of it, I think is amusing anyway. Plus, it amuses me that someone watches that and just goes, what the fuck's going on? That's my, like, if someone sees something and goes, I have literally no idea what that means, that's funny to me. So that's what that is. Jawazi says, are there certain must-have mods for Total War Warhammer? I would say the mods that I always want to take, Rebanner 2 is an obvious one. The better camera mod is another one. The relics, the better relics one is something you can take if you kind of. I would say the Rebanner one is a definite take, because a lot of the banners in vanilla are just fucking awful. Like, they're just crap. There's no point taking them. And Rebanner 2 just, it doesn't make them OP. Alright, maybe a couple of them are OP. But most of them, it just makes the point where you go, you know what, this would be good on this unit, and it just kind of works. Whereas normally you're like, I don't really give a shit where this goes because it doesn't really matter. So I'd say definitely Rebanner 2. The quicker end time camera mod as well, that's really, really useful. And the better camera mods, just because that gives you better sort of control of the camera during the battles. I would say those are the three that I definitely can't play a campaign without them. Franco Begbie says, if there's no current DLC to showcase, how about some short campaigns with your favourite factions in some of the older titles like Shogun 2 or Rome 2? Well, as luck would have it, I'm actually doing a series at the moment called 20 Years of Total War, that's the one, where I'm going to play every single one of the main Total War games throughout the year, because it's been 20 years since Shogun came out. I'm currently playing Shogun. It's an experience, and it's not one I ever choose to want to redo. However, once I finish that, I'm going to move on to Medieval, then Rome, then whatever comes after that. Medieval 2? Citation needed? I'm not sure. I can't remember, but yeah, so I'm basically going to be playing all of the Total War games in order, campaign of each. I might put polls up depending on what faction I want to play, potentially. It's an option. So definitely look out for that. Crafty Scott has also asked, why the hate for Manfred and his shiny moon head? 1, he's got a shiny moon head. 2, his armour is impractical. If he sneezes, he's going to poke his eyes out. 3, he was the prick that caused the end times. Basically, I mean, the end times lore is trash. We don't talk about the end times. But if we're going to talk about the end times, basically, it was a whole bunch of, like, the Warhammer heroes have become Archons, apparently. Like, Nagash was the Archon of Death or something, and I think Alariel was the Archon or something, and Tyrion was the Archon. Anyway, the point is you had a whole bunch of, like, you know, heroes, and they were like, yeah, we're going to stop Archon. Maybe there was an Archon. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, they were all teamed up against Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, and it almost worked until Manfred, who was having a bit of a paddy, I think he, like, kicked Teclis or something, or killed someone. He did something that basically fucked us all over, and then the entire old world was destroyed. So basically, Manfred is a giant man-child, and he couldn't deal with the fact that he wasn't, I don't know, didn't have a fucking head of hair or something? I don't know, but either way, he was a prick. He destroyed the old world. He deserves everything he gets. Fuck Manfred. Please stop. So I don't know whether that's a cry for help or what. Please stop says, what is your favourite lore of magic in the Total War Warhammer series and why? I do quite like Shadow. Like, Shadow magic is good. Is it grey magic? Shadow magic? You get Pit of Shades. You get Penumbral Pendulum. You get a whole bunch of good stuff. It's all pretty good. So that's a contender. However, vampire magic, you get Wind of Death, which is one of the best spells. However, with that all said, I'm going to nail it down to saying Amber. And Amber because of Amber Spear. That's the entire... Amber Spear is the best spell in the game. Don't at me. Vice said you have a unique, as far as I know, for single player Let's Plays of Total War where commenting battles instead of playing them. What made you decide this method instead of the normal method of just playing them like other YouTubers? So, at the time I started, I didn't have a solid state drive, so the loading times in between the campaign and the battles was pretty long, about 2-3 minutes, I think. So because of that, I wanted to cut that time out anyway, because otherwise it's literally dead air, so don't want to do that. And also, I'm getting on, right? I'm 39, 8? I can't remember. I think I'm 38. So I'm getting on. I don't have the reactions of a young whippersnapper, and as such, I play the vast majority of my battles in either slow motion or pausing a lot. To be honest, a combination of the two. And because of that, it isn't very good to look at, and obviously it takes longer. So I thought, well, if I fight the battle and then I get to watch the replay, then it looks a bit better. The other thing was I was going to try and emulate the way that Total War did it, where they kind of have that sort of mix of both the cinematic and the battle and playing that battle at the same time. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work because particularly on the campaign, you find that the campaign battle and the replay can have wildly fucking different weather. You can fight the battle in the campaign and it could be like tundra. You fight the battle in the replay and it's a fucking snowfield and it could be snowing. And so cutting between the two is a bit, well, very jarring. As such, I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to record the replays because that way you can get down close, you can see all the cool fighting. And I think that's really what Total War's about, is watching people gut each other on a battlefield. And, if that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. Ducky asks, when you play Warhammer, you have a tendency to forget truces and in general not pay attention to whom you call in as allies when you attack, and keep getting surprised when someone starts to siege your own towns. How much, if any, of this is an act? Sorry if you consider it a rude question, seeing as it kind of aimed at your personality, but I am curious. Don't worry, it's not a rude question, and it's not an act. I am legitimately that fucking useless. It tends to be that I think playing Total War and sort of recording Total War are two very, very different things. And that's because if you're playing Total War, you can take a second to just mull things over, can't you? You can look at all the stats, you can mouse over stuff and go, okay, that, right, okay, I'm pretty happy. When you're recording, you can't really do that because you're having to talk over stuff. People, I don't really find that it's particularly interesting if you're constantly sort of just murmuring over yourself. And I do it sometimes, but often I'm trying to react to what someone said or what's happening, and often that doesn't give me the time to look at the details. So a lot of it comes down to the fact that my brain is trying to process the fact that I need to say something interesting, potentially, at the same time as paying attention to what's going on. The other thing is the fact that I tend to play the campaign over like short periods of time over a long period of time. So I tend to like record for maybe an hour, 45 minutes, or maybe 2 hours, hour to 2 hours, let's say, of recording, and then I don't play it until the next day, or maybe for another couple of days, and at that point I've mostly forgotten what's happening. So I think that, as I say, playing Total War and recording Total War are very different things. With that said, I'm a scatterbrained tit anyway, so it just exacerbates my natural tendency just to not pay attention to things. So now we're going to do the miscellaneous questions, ones that didn't fit into any of the previous categories. So Hence says, when are you going to join late night show interviews now that you're such a public figure and a star? Will fame get into your head? Well, I will happily accept any offer, no matter how small. But yes, it will go to my head, and I will make extravagant and wild demands for my dressing room. Shiz T has asked, have you ever considered commenting on nature videos like Sir David Attenborough? A bit of context, in your Grand Ketep campaign, there was one battle where you spent about 5 minutes talking about the trees on the map. That bit was absolutely hilarious. David Attenborough is quite old, isn't he? So I don't see why I could not be the new face of nature, assuming there's any left after it's all burnt down, of course. Yeah, maybe David, if you're watching, get in touch. I'm more than happy to take over. Wandering Artists asked, with your ever-rising fame and cult of personality invading every walk of YouTube's, when will you run for office and what office will you be running for? Well, despite my Adonis-like physique, I don't actually like moving very much. So when you say run for office, I'll at most be doing a slow jog. And the office I'll be running for is whichever one's closest. Tom York has said, as a fellow Englishman and myself a Yorkshireman, I must know how you make your tea and what brand of tea is your preferred choice. If it's Taifu, I'll be just very disappointed. Not mad, just disappointed. Congratulations on 10k. Thank you very much. So obviously, as any normal Englishman, I put the milk in first, and then I add the tea bag, and I leave that for about 45 minutes, and then I add lukewarm water. Stir it with the wrong end of a spoon and then fling it into a hedge. No, of course not. I make tea the normal way. I make it in a pot because that's not. I used to use loose tea, but frankly, it's just a faff. So now these days I get PG tips. I used to get Twinings, but they've gone up in price, so I just get PG tips these days because frankly I can't tell the difference anyway. Yeah, but I always use a pot because that is important. Albert Lou says, "What is your least favourite game?" I don't really have a game that I would say... I mean, least favourite. Well, I take it this isn't Total War, this is just in general. I mean, if it's Total War, I'd probably say... I mean, I'm playing Shogun now, and it's a bit of a drag. But I wouldn't say I don't like it. I would say it's my least favourite. Yeah, that's the question, is least favourite. Okay, I'd say probably Shogun, just because it's so old for Total War. In general, least favourite... I'll say Sword of the Stars 2, because I loved Sword of the Stars. I had high hopes for Sword of the Stars 2, and it was trash when it was released, unfortunately. It was just a mess, and that was a real letdown, so that's probably my least favourite. Will Wilson says, could I get an autograph? I'll pay for shipping to and from the US to the UK. Real request. Sure, absolutely, although I would say that I don't really have a signature. My signature changes every single time I write it. I've never really seen the point in signatures, because... like, mine just changes every single time I write it, so what's the fuck? I could not... like, if someone said, is this your signature? My answer would be, maybe. I don't know. Depends how I was feeling at the time. If I was in a rush, it just looks like a line. If not, I don't really care. So, absolutely sure. Yeah, no problem. Can do. Send me an email at monstersabound@gmail.com and we'll sort something out. Neolith Grun says, if you were given a 1-minute ad slot on TV while billions of people are watching, what would you fill it with? And what's the weirdest question you've been asked so far? Hail Jeff. What would I fill it with? Jesus. I guess... fuck, I don't know. Like... 1-minute ad slot. Ulysses theme tune. Just rocking. Just whack it up. Everyone can watch it. It'll be great. They'd all enjoy it. What's the weirdest question you've been asked? I mean, probably that one, to be fair. That's pretty weird. I guess the David Attenborough one was a bit weird as well. But yeah, one of those two. Majestic Eagle Sasquatch asks, any advice for life in general? Oh, wise one. I mean, well, first bit of advice, don't ask YouTubers for their advice, because they're generally fucking idiots. I know, because I am a fucking idiot. However, if I was going to give advice to anyone, it is... and this is, right, brutal seriousness, right? I always try and keep in mind that everyone is fighting their own battles. That's just a mantra that I tell myself. So if someone is if someone's a bit of a prick to me, I always think, you know what, they might be having a rough day, week, month, year, life. It might, things could be really tough for them. I don't know. Maybe they're taking it out on me, and that's not fair on me. But at the same time, let's not exacerbate the problem. They could be a prick, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Ducky asks, how much cake is too much cake? Can I have too much cake? Chaos says, do you play Warhammer tabletop, or maybe played it in the past? What armies did you enjoy? I did. I collected Empire and Orcs. I also collected Warhammer 40,000. I collected Orcs in that, and Tau. This is a few years ago now. I don't play it now just because I don't have the room for it. Mostly, though, the game I really, really enjoyed was Epic. which was the like tiny little figures and the Titans. That was my game. I loved that game. I was really disappointed when the new Epic came out because it just wasn't as good. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy as much. So, bit of a shame that wasn't kind of when I like stopped playing really when the new sort of Epic came out and it just wasn't as fun, and I was kind of like, okay. So, yes, I have. I would like to get back into painting stuff because I quite enjoyed that. But again, trying to find time is, the tricky bit. Telsian Blackadder asks, what is the weirdest game you've ever played? Ooh. Weirdest game. So, I remember this game that was on the Spectrum ZX. And it was, I'm trying to remember. Right, so basically you had these like figures, like knights dressed in chainmail. They had different heads. So it was kind of based on chess. So you had like lots of like little pawny people. Then you had like your king, he was the top one. And basically they walked around. And if they walk, like you'd watch like your one pawn move and then the other pawn move. And they moved into different like rooms, like 2D rooms side on. And there might be an enemy guy as well. And they were different colours. But of course this was the Spectrum ZX. So the colours were neon purple, neon blue, like dark green, neon green and grey, I think, were the colours. And if the two people they'd walk towards each other, kind of, and then they'd have a little sword fight where they'd kind of go ka-ching, 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 and then eventually one would stab the other in the face. And I think it depended on, so if a king was fighting a pawn, the king would win, but sometimes the king would lose. Basically, I played this game probably when I was probably about 8. I have no fucking clue what I was doing, but I was like, this is amazing. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what was going on, but it was like, it was so cool to watch the little people sword fight on the screen. And I was like, this is great. I still to this day don't know what that game was, but I would love to find out because that game was fucking weird. Telstian also asks, what is your game of the 10 decade? We tell Warhammer 2 would probably be the obvious answer. Battle Stellaris. I love those two games. They're both really, really good. One of them. Lemon yesterday said, which British monarch is your favourite in history? I don't know. Henry VIII, because he was a big fatty. He killed a lot of women, didn't he? It was a bit shit. To be honest, most of our royalty is a bit shit. Most of our royalty are dicks, basically. Something that hasn't really changed very much, to be honest. Just look at Prince Andrew. What a guy. Sons of the Reaper asked, now that one seat of the royal family is open, would you accept an eventual offer from Her Majesty to become the substitute of Prince Harry? Nah, you're alright, thanks. It seems like a lot of work, to be honest. A lot of waving, a lot of wearing suits. Basically, I'd kind of like the money. The money seems good. Doing the work, though, seems like a lot of effort. I would like a job which pays me a lot of money, but at the same time, doesn't want me to do anything. Basically, I just want to be rich. Basically, that would be the ideal, and being in the royal family just seems like a lot of work. Talcin asked, what do you have against capes and cloaks? It's showboaty, basically. No capes. Ahmed Ali says, favourite books? Question mark. So, I've always loved the Discworld books. And particularly I've always enjoyed the City Watch series with Commander Vimes. That would be my go-to. With that said, I also love The Hitchhiker's Guide. That's a really good series. What else? And the Fighting Fantasy books are really, really good. I started playing them again recently. Jesus Christ, they're unfair. It's so easy just to wander like around it just says, oh, there's an old man, he winks at you. Do you want to follow him around the corner? And you think, this will be great, no problem. You go around the corner, sacrifice to a voodoo god. it's just like, well, there was nothing to say that would happen. Or you get right to the end of the book and it goes, do you have this object that you could have picked up at page 3? And you're like, no, of course I don't. And it goes, well, you're fucked. Enjoy. So it's they're kind of fun, and they're also kind of fun just to rage at, I find. But yeah, definitely Discworld books, Hitchhiker's Guide, and the Fighting Fantasy books. They're all really, really good. So there we go. Thank you for all your questions, and particularly thank you for subscribing and for watching. Maybe I'll do another one at 20k, whenever that happens. If it happens, I don't, because obviously YouTube is one of those things where, as I said, you start off small, and as you grow, it kind of gets exponentially faster. So 20k might come a little bit quicker, or it might not come at all. I don't know. Legitimately have no idea. But I'm definitely going to continue what I'm doing. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. And I will see you next time.